Tonight on Kiwi News. Good news for Glendowie Primary School as design plans are underway. And a Kiwi News exclusive as we talk to the brains behind a 21st century idea. This is Kiwi News for Saturday the 2nd of July. I'm your host this evening, in Ireland. It was in January this year that a devastating fire hit Glendowie Primary School and the hearts of the Glendowie community. Since this event, a huge effort has been made by the principal Anne-Marie Biggs, together with staff and the local community, to get things back to normal. This is what she had to say. So how did you feel when you saw the fire for the first time coming down the Glendowie Road?
The extent of the smoke and the colour of the smoke, this was obviously going to be quite significant. It was very hard to see where the fire was because it was behind the main entranceway, and it was only that the smoke which was giving me this sort of an idea how significant it was going to be. And then when I walked to the corner of the buildings and saw the grass alight, the playground alight, the buildings alight and flames everywhere, it was really how much are we going to lose. So a lot of apprehension about how far this was going, yes.
So what are the plans now for the school for the section that was burnt down?
Okay, we've appointed a project manager and an architect, and at present he's working with the Board of Trustees and myself and looking at concept plans. But it's intended that we'll build replacement buildings, replacement classrooms, 2-storey, and they'll be purposely built for a modern learning environment, for improved teaching and learning for children. They'll be IT equipped for the future. They'll be inside and outside for teaching and learning, and the children will have the benefit of having a really modern environment once it's established. And we expect probably about October next year, 2012, that this big design plan will be completed and will be built. Yes.
You're saying it's going to be modern. Are you going to keep the rest of the architecture of the school designed into the newer building?
Yes and no. There's very little of the original building left. The school was built in 1952, so the front block facing the road is really the only part of the school which is going to be still standing, and the new buildings are all going to be around the back of the school. So it's hoped that we'll be in keeping in terms of wood. It's a nice feeling of warmth that we're going to have. But in terms of 2-storey, the previous building was 1-storey, and there's a big gap between 1952 and now, particularly since the back will look so different from the front. So it'll be a bit of a mixture between the old architecture but with the new modern environment, yes.
So what are the plans now for the school and for yourself?
Well, I'm hoping that next Christmas I'll have a longer holiday, because the fire happened on the 7th of January and that was the end of the holiday, and it's taken a significant amount of time to try and recover from the fire and look at rebuilding. So yes, it will be lovely to have some sorts of holidays and to keep better hours than I'm keeping at the moment. In terms of the school, it's really the rebuild and the challenge of where we're going to put children, and the excitement of a new playground for children and lovely courtyards. But there's still a long way to go. We've still got a lot of negotiation with insurance companies, a lot of negotiation with the Ministry of Education, just in defining the brief and the extent of what the Ministry of Education are going to give us and how much the board will contribute out of their own funds, because this is an opportunity for us to rebuild the school to last for the future.
Snapper has recently revolutionised the way we use public transport. The innovative idea has transformed the way commuters experience day-to-day travel. This is certainly the way of the 21st century. The Snapper chief executive spoke to Kiwi News in an exclusive interview. This is what he had to say.
Sure. So Snapper is a contactless payment system. So it's in place in Auckland and Wellington. It's used to pay for all sorts of everyday items, whether they be bus fares, convenience goods, and taxis. And what we've done in Auckland, we've been working with Auckland Transport, who have got the HOP brand for what they want to do with integrated ticketing. So in the first phase of that project, we've provided all of the main technology, the cards, the retail network, so we can get HOP up and running.
Isn't it?
So at the moment, they're the same thing. I mean, HOP is basically a rebranded version of Snapper, but where HOP will go, Auckland Transport will take that in a place where it's used for trains and ferries, and it'll be only about public transport. And Snapper is a much wider form of payment. And what we have agreed to do is to just work together in the Auckland market. So effectively, you get these single cards, which basically have HOP for public transport and Snapper for everyday payments. Okay, so the idea was came up sort of around 6 years ago. So Snapper's owned by Infratil, which is one of New Zealand's largest companies. It's in the top 10 companies in New Zealand, and they bought a bus company about 6 years ago called Stagecoach, and they had to look at the ticketing equipment that they had on those buses, and they decided actually that we've got to the point where they're getting towards the end of their life, and they had a decision to make. Do you just replace that equipment, or do you actually take a more strategic view on this and say, actually, public transport is one of those things where people are using small amounts of cash every day. Could you apply that in a much broader market in terms of just generally replacing cash and coins out there in the market? And that's what they did. So they started Snapper at that point. And it started in Wellington with just one bus company and a handful of retailers, and it's grown really amazingly in that time. So we're around 250,000 cards out there, over 1,000 buses between Auckland and Wellington, and 2,000 taxis, and around 500 retailers. So it's just gone from strength to strength, and we think it's got some great potential and go a long way further. So for public transport, which we think is the main place to start with these things, we do two things in public transport. We help people get better value. So every time people use a Snapper card or a HOP card on public transport, they're getting a discount. So in Wellington it's 20% compared to cash for adult fares. In Auckland it's 10% compared to adult, but it goes right up to 40% for tertiary students. So that's really good value for customers. But the second thing, and actually more importantly, is it just helps the bus go faster. So people aren't fiddling around with cash. They're simply tagging their card to the reader when they get on, tagging it when they get off. The system calculates how much they have to pay automatically. And we can see that now in Auckland. I mean, so some buses, which have a lot of HOP card use on them, they've already taken 10 minutes off the whole journey time because they're not having to worry about people sort of dealing with cash and paper tickets and the like. It's just faster, and it's the way it should be in the 21st century. Yeah, so every bus is equipped with GPS, and we've mapped out every bus stop in Auckland and in Wellington. So we know exactly where a bus is, what route it's on, sort of what the pricing is from any point to any point. So you can calculate that stuff instantly, which is great.
Breaking news: an earthquake has hit Auckland City overnight. I was at the scene this morning with more. Auckland was hit with an earthquake last night at 9:09. Residents say there was shaking throughout the city. GeoNet says the earthquake magnitude was 2.9 and the depth was 9 kilometres east of central Auckland, off Mission Bay Beach. It was felt as far north as Wellsford and as far south as Papakura. It is a similar force to the 5 aftershocks felt in Christchurch yesterday. There have been no reported injuries. I'm Ben Ireland reporting for Kiwi News. For all your latest local news updates, members competitions, topic of the week and much more, become a Kiwi News site member by going to the members page and clicking on the sign up button. Now let's take a look at the weather for Sunday. Auckland has sun with slight clouds with a high of 16. As well for Wellington, sun with slight clouds with a high of 12. Christchurch is beautiful, no clouds in the sky with a high of 14. And Dunedin is sunny with a high of 14. This has been your weather for Sunday. This has been Kiwi News for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.